Good morning. You hear me? Okay. It is certainly a privilege to be here and to be able to speak to you this morning. I want to talk to you about a thriving faith in a hostile environment. Now, there are a lot of hostile environments we deal with. With Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. And it talks about at the beginning of the movie, space is an environment where nothing can live, nothing can survive. There's nothing there. It's a hostile environment. So if you don't bring your stuff with you, you don't survive. Water can be like that. Back when I was a kid, I had a little experience one time, and I was swimming one day and got in some deep water, and this was just a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden this anxiety comes on from somewhere, and realize that I swim a lot, but I swim in a pool, and I can see what's down below me. But you can die. Now, and I know some of you would be disappointed if I didn't go here, but most of you don't know this. I work with in water and wastewater. Wastewater can create a hostile environment. I mean, you're thinking, oh yeah, I know, but no, you really don't. Because once it gets beyond your scope, chemical reactions start happening. And you have two kinds of reactions. You have aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic means there's oxygen there, and so it reacts with that and starts breaking down. When the oxygen's all used up in a closed environment, it becomes an anaerobic reaction, and it starts using nitrogen and other things to break down. And both of them can be profitable, but when it's not controlled, when the anaerobic goes back to an aerobic, things happen, and you get a really bad smell. Well, that's the rotten egg smell. That's called hydrogen sulfide. Well, hydrogen sulfide will condense when it comes out of solution. And it gets on metal, and it gets on concrete, and guess what? It becomes sulfuric acid. What does sulfuric acid do? It eats things up. And you can go look in and I remember looking at some of these pump stations and just seeing corroded, just like tin can thin ductile iron pipe that was once a half an inch thick. It's a hostile environment. And we're surrounded by that, and sometimes we live in them. They sometimes term workplaces as hostile environments. There are times my family is a hostile environment, and I can say that, but Martha's watching, so I'll have to talk about it when I get home. But you know what I mean, hostile environments. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is some young men in a hostile environment. So if you want to look at, with me, Daniel, we're going to look at the book of Daniel. Now, the book of Daniel is often known. People talk about all the prophecies and all the dreams and all those things. But there are not just great stories, there's great applications from those stories to our lives today. So Daniel, and I want to start with chapter 1, verse 8. It says, Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. Now, that word resolved is an important word. I think it's in National Treasure. Nicolas Cage they're looking at this stuff, and they talk about being resolved, and they talk about it being a firm commitment. And I think that's a good definition. Daniel and his compadres here made a firm commitment that we're not going to defile ourselves with this food. Now, to give you the story, Nebuchadnezzar, he made his first trip to Jerusalem. The king and all the family came out, and they said, listen, you got us. And he says, okay, from here on, I'm going to take some stuff out of the temple, and then I'm taking some of your nobles and your royal people, and we're going to train them to be good Babylonians. And so Daniel and these guys, they get whisked away to Babylon, a very foreign environment, a very different world from what they grew up in. But these were good Jewish young men. And they said, in order to be Jews, there are certain things you can eat, certain things you can't eat. There are certain ways you prepare things, certain ways you don't prepare things. And they resolved, we will not defile ourselves with these situations. Now, so in order to deal with resolutions, you have to deal with circumstances. They were not in a good circumstance when they made this resolution. And for many of you, if you serve Christ and you resolve to serve Him, you will find yourself sometimes in negative circumstances. You will find yourselves in odd places where you're in trouble. And they made this resolution, and then they said, how are we going to make this happen? What we do a lot of times, and so what they find themselves in, because of this resolution, they're in a conflict. They have a conflict because the people from Babylon really don't care about Jewish dietary laws. They don't care what's important to you. Now you serve the king of Babylon. And that's the way it's going to be. So Daniel comes up with a solution. Instead of compromising, he comes up with a solution. And it seems like it's going to work. If you look in chapter 8, he said, so he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now this sounds positive. Now God caused the official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, I'm afraid of my lord the king who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would have my head because of you. So he values his head more than he values Daniel's principles. So he says, no, you're eating the food. I watched Napoleon Dynamite the other day. It was on TV. I love Napoleon Dynamite. And he comes out, remember the llama? And he throws the food down. Eat the food, Tina. So basically that's what he's saying. Eat the food, Daniel. I mean, this is not bad food. This is from the king's table. This is good stuff. It's good food. It's wine. Let's eat. But Daniel has resolved not to do that. It looks like a good situation, but he has resolved not to do that. For some of you as Christians, you're going to resolve, I'm going to follow Christ, and then you're going to have a conflict. Then what you're tempted to do is compromise. Years ago, and one of my former employers required me to get a life coach. Not just me, it just wasn't my problem. Everybody, like on our level, had to have a life coach. And so, and I loved my life coach. Nicole was, and she goes by the name the Vibrant Coach. And she is a bundle of fire. If you ever get a chance to hear her, go hear her. I still think a lot of her. But we were meeting one day, and she said, I had some insight this guy gave me, and I thought it was good. And she said the analogy was if everybody had like a little porthole. You know what a porthole is? Like a little round hole in a ship. You look out the window. I had a friend of mine said he joined the Navy to see the world, and he did, through the porthole in a ship. She said, this guy said, if everybody had like a little porthole right there and you could look in, you would see 3 words. 3 things that really drive them. One would be power. And people who have that need for power will compromise to get power. They will, some of them, and I won't call names like Washington, D.C. politicians, sell their soul to get power. They will compromise their principles. They will compromise their family because they have such a huge need inside for power. But that's not all of us. But you see these people, and they will. And we extol them and go, look what they did. But they sold out. They sold out a lot of things along the way to get to where they were. Not all of them, but some of them will, if that need is big enough. She said the second thing that you would see if you looked in there was acceptance. The need to be accepted. Now, that's me. I was an acceptance guy. When I hit about 12 years old, the guys I ran with said, Barry, here's things we're going to do. If you're going to run with us, you got to do them. Sold out in a heartbeat. There wasn't even a test because I had such a need for acceptance from these people. And it's a wonder it didn't get me in a lot of trouble. It did get me in some. But that need for acceptance just drives people, and they're willing to compromise a lot of things, including their faith, in order to be accepted by people that they value, that they esteem. The third thing you see is security. And you may be a security person here, and you may say, I really like security. I like to be financially secure. I like to have a secure job. I like to have security. And, in order to get security, if that's what I've got to do, then that's what I'm going to have to do. I'll compromise right there. But here's the strange thing about it. When we do those things, it's never enough. If you're seeking power, you can never quite get enough power. I mean, all you have to do is look at the politicians. They're always looking for more. You look at these people, these Jeff Bezos and these guys that have made literally billions of dollars, and they're powerful people, but there's always something else to gain. It's not, you can't satisfy that hunger. And so, but the great thing is when we yield it, when we resolve to serve God and we don't let that run our lives, we find out the one who really has power. We get in line with an almighty God, and then we begin to understand what power really is. The same way with acceptance. People who need acceptance, and you see it all the time on social media. I'll see, I don't do social media because I have need for acceptance, so I don't want to get started. But, I hear people say, I posted this and I had 20 likes. So? But they value that. But then the trolls start. And they start hammering you. And you see it all the time. And what was it? One of the little K-pop girls, a couple of months ago, committed suicide. And they said it had a lot to do with people were hammering her on social media. And it was so important to her that she couldn't take it anymore. There was such a need for acceptance. And then, but here's the great thing. When you resolve to serve God, you find out what acceptance really is. Because you have a God who loves you unconditionally. You have a God that says, I accept you just like you are. We're going to work on some things here. But I love you. I love you more than you can ever imagine. And I remember when I understood that, what a difference it made in my life. I didn't care if anybody else accepted me because I knew God accepted me and loved me. The third thing, security. Security in this world is a fallacy. There is no security here. There's not enough money. There's not a good enough job. The things that you think make you secure can be gone in a heartbeat. But we've got a God who manages everything. That's the only security we find. So these guys understood that. So they didn't compromise. They didn't say, well, looks like we're going to be eating pork from the king's table today. No. They did what and I love this as I looked at it and thought about it. They saw the conflict. They had a problem. So they got creative. And we serve a creative God. I was walking in the house Friday night, and I looked up, and I saw Orion's belt up in the sky. And it just boggles my mind, and Martha and I got to talking, and I got to going off on this stuff. And I said, do you realize we live in a world that's just hanging here? There's no strings attached to this, none that we can see. And we're just hanging out here. And there's a moon over there, and there's a sun over here, and there's vast array of stars and solar systems and things out here that we have no idea how all that, we get out here, all this stuff. And we kind of understand, but how in the world can you do something like that? God is so vastly creative. So these guys get creative. They say, well, the chief guy's not going to do. But so they go to their guard. Now, what does the chief official do? Y'all been around government long enough. I'm working government. I know what chief officials do. They look at reports. They check off reports. They answer to the next guy above them. And so the chief official, he's not down there with Daniel and the boys. He's in his little office checking off reports. And I guess back in that day, they had like a scroll. You'd look at your report that way, however they did it in Babylon. So they go to the guard. And they say that, listen, the chief official said we've got to eat this food, but it really, religiously, it bothers us and we can't do it. So let's have a contest. And for 10 days, you give us vegetables and water, and you get the king's food and the wine. And in 10 days, look at us, look at all the other prisoners, and if we look worse, we'll start eating this stuff. So they put their hands in, or put their fate in God's hands. But what they also set up was a great win-win situation. I don't know if they saw this or not. I saw it as I read it. Now, if the king's food is coming down to their part of the cell or whatever they were in, and they're supposed to be eating it, you can't send it back to the kitchen. Because the chief official is going to get wind that the food's coming back, what's happening down here, and he's going to be down there. That's not what you want. You don't want the chief official showing up. They can't throw it in the trash because they didn't have trash bags where you could tie it up and nobody could see it. I mean, they're just dumping it in the trash back in Babylon. So somebody's got to eat the food. Guess who's eating the food? Tell me who's eating it. The guards. The guards are getting food from the king's table, and they're getting wine from the king's table, and it's a great time to be a guard. Every day. So 10 days later, I don't know if they looked very hard or not. They probably sat around and looked at, said, they look pretty good to me. What do you think? He said, it looks all right to me. He said, we're good. We're good. You guys eat vegetables. We'll take care of the food. But God works there. They resolved, I will not compromise here in my relationship to God, and God honored that. But it was even more than just that. If you go down to verse 17, it said, to these 4 young men God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds, which really sets up the whole book. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them in, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. He had no clue what had been going on. And the king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding, about which the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all the magicians, enchanters in his whole kingdom. God blessed them. But he did more than just bless them. He made them a blessing to the king. They were the guys. These guys are smarter than everybody else. They have wisdom. They have insight. If you go to read chapter 2, I'm not going to go to chapter 2, but you need to read it. It's a great story. A ridiculous story, but a great story. So the final result is God blesses them and he makes them a blessing to others. So you have this resolve. You have a conflict. You have the ability to compromise that they're unwilling to do. They get creative, and then they are blessed. And they bless everybody else. But now that's not where I want to end today, because it goes a little further. When you make a resolve to serve God, sooner or later, you're going to come down to a confrontation. You're going to have a confrontation with somebody, and confrontations conflict was, we could work it out. Confrontation's not always that way. So turn over to chapter 3. I'm going to kind of tell you the story here because I don't want to keep you too long. You can go back and read it. You can check on me. But in chapter 3, Nebuchadnezzar does a team building event. You know how when you work for a company, sometimes they want to get everybody on the same page, and they're going to sell you, and want everybody moving together, and we're going to do this. So what the Babylonians would do, they would go out and they would take over these people groups, or these nations, or these cities. And from that people group, they would take a few people from there, just like they did with Daniel and his cohorts here, and they would bring them to Babylon, to train them to be good Babylonians. So you've got somebody to work in between. They understand the people, but they also understand the Babylonians. So you come to service of the king. So this was a big empire. So you have people from, say, North Africa. You have people from Egypt, from the Middle East, people from India and Pakistan, people from up in northern or southern Europe, And they're all there, and they're all very different, come from very different cultures. They speak different languages, but they've been trained in all the Babylonian stuff. But they've still got a lot of their culture in them. So the king decides, well, we're going to do a unity thing. So, they have probably, and I can just picture this. They go out on, they call it the Plain of Dura, brings them all together, and they had lunch, and all of a sudden, they unveil this gold statue. This is probably about as tall as this building, 90 foot tall. And everybody's going, wow, look at that. That's impressive, and it would be. And then the herald loudly proclaims, "This is what you're commanded to do, O peoples, nations, and men of every language. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harps, pipes, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up." So they had a worship team. They had all kind of stuff. They had a flute. They had a zither. So they're probably playing like the Babylonian national anthem or something like that, or the Nebuchadnezzar national anthem, because and here's how he ensures that you get good cooperation. Whoever does not fall down and worship the image will be immediately thrown into the blazing furnace. There's no time to sit down and go, can we talk about this? Let's have a group discussion. Oh, no. See, what we don't understand as Americans is we don't understand the idea of a king. If we get in trouble with the law, we call a lawyer. And it goes to court and it gets worked out and all these things happen. When there's the king, you don't have that. You don't need a lawyer because you're dealing with the king. He doesn't answer to anyone but himself. So here's the deal. So anyway, they have the horn, flute, zither, all that play. Everybody bows down. And it looks like everything's okay. But then, verse 8 says, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. "O King Nebuchadnezzar, O King, live forever." That's what they always say. They don't mean it. "You've issued a decree. When we hear it, we fall down and worship." Verse 12 says, "But there are some Jews whom you've appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, namely Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, O king. They neither serve you nor your gods or worship the image of gold you've set up." So what they've done, they've created a difficult situation because the king's got to do something now. If the king acted like he didn't see it and nobody else did anything, he doesn't have to do anything. But now he has to do something because who is he? Stay with me. Who is he? The king. And the king has, as Brother Aaron talked about last week, an issue. He's got an issue because he's got 3 guys that didn't bow down. And he's got to do something. So he's mad. The writer says he's furious. So he brings them in and he says, "Is it true, guys, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I've set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute," and he goes through the whole thing again, "if you fall down and worship," he says, "very good." Basically he said, if you'll do it now, we'll forget about it. We're done. We'll move on. We'll have lunch. Everybody will be happy. But if you don't, into the blazing furnace you go. And then he says this little comment, "Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Oh yeah, the gauntlet is thrown down. And so they basically they go, "Don't bother." He said, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to save us from it. And he will rescue us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you've set up." Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He's saying, this is the king. I mean, this is the guy up on a throne with guards, with all this stuff. And what we find out later is all the people there that were at the Plain of Dura, they're standing there. Everybody's watching. He's on display. He's got to do something. So he does it and expects. What does he expect? Okay, we'll bow. But as they get ready to play the music and they don't bother. Our God can save us and we believe that he will. But even if he doesn't, we're not bowing down. Holy cow. So I'll give you the very paraphrase. So he says, heat up that furnace 7 times hotter. Heat it up. Throw the pine in there. Get it all ready because we're going to see some boys barbecue tonight. So he ties them up. He gets his strongest soldiers. They throw them in. It says the fire was so hot that it killed them, and they're done. He's made a statement. This is what happens when you're not a part of the team. When you're not a team player, you go to the furnace. Oh, no. Because as he takes a glance in to see them burning, I guess that would be, I don't know. He says he leaped to his feet in amazement, and he asked his advisors, said, weren't there 3 men we tied up and threw in the fire? And they said, certainly, O king. Yes, O great one. There were 3 guys. He said, then how come I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods? Something has happened here. Something has changed. So he calls them out. He's Shadrach, Meshach, still acting like a king. Come out here. And so, how do you come out of a fire? I guess you just come out, And so he comes out, and he says, listen, this is great. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps and the prefects and the governors and the royal advisors crowded around them. They're all there seeing this. They saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was the hair of their head singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smell of fire on them. They saw that. And then this is what Nebuchadnezzar. So this is your last C if you're keeping up. So you've got a confrontation, then you have a confession. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I decree that any people of any nation or language who says anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces, their houses be turned into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. They saw something they had never seen before. Now here's what, and I'll close with this, and this is what I really want you to see. If we resolve to follow God and serve him, if we resolve to be a part of that kingdom instead of this world, we're going to have conflicts. There's going to be temptations to compromise. There will be times we run into confrontation. But it's very often that in the midst of that, even the people that are causing the problem see the hand of God at work in a way that they would never seen it if we hadn't had that. I look back at so many times in my life when I'm thinking, God, what are you doing? I trusted you, and look at the mess we're in. Only to see him work. And I remember one time I accused him, I said, I know you never made a mistake, but why'd you have to make the first one on me? Yeah, I did. I said it. And 2 days later, I got on my knees and I confessed when he came to bat for me. And he worked things out in a way that I could have never worked it out. Whenever we face difficult circumstances, disappointments, trials, when we get to the end of our rope and we say, Lord, I'm trusting you, I can't do anything. When we're unwilling to compromise our faith, Sister Crystal sang it today, God will make a way. God will make a way. So this morning, as we close, I was going to do a song. I don't think it's going to matter. But here's the deal, and here's my challenge to you. Number one, that you resolve today that you're going to serve the Lord. He is going to be the most valuable thing in your life. You are not going to you're not going to compromise in order to gain power, in order to gain acceptance from somebody that you think is special, in order to think you make your life more secure, because you have power if you're resolved to serve him. You have acceptance if you've resolved to serve him. You have security that this world cannot offer if you resolve to serve him and follow him. So this morning, my challenge is to you resolve. You make that firm commitment that he is going to be my God and I am going to serve him. Pray with me if you would. Father, today we come to you and we have issues. Brother Aaron, Brother Frank were right. We have difficult circumstances. We have situations. We have things that are not, maybe not be going well in our lives that we don't know where to turn. But we turn to you. And we know that in doing that, you will help us. You will guide us. You will lead us. You will carry us through. Just like you did Daniel and Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego, Lord, we can count on you. You're the same God. You're the same today, every day. So, Lord, give us courage. Help us to find your spirit in our lives. Give us the courage to stand up to the people and say, it doesn't matter what you do, we're not going to bow. Or to when we have these conflicts, to find ways to seek your wisdom and find ways of resolving them in a way that honors you and glorifies you and makes us better servants. Lord, I pray that you would go with us today, encourage us today, help us to walk with you, and we pray this now in Jesus' strong and holy name. Amen. Thank you for being here.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, oh, I will sing of the goodness